The beloved Black Ops 2 was one of the best games to ever grace the earth. With FaZe Team being at the top and Trickshot being the greatest thing since sliced bread, Black Ops 2 really brought culture back to where it was best. But today we're playing the beloved campaign, and we're seeing if it's possible to beat Black Ops 2 without taking no damage. Game starts by raiding P. Diddy's mansion, where we find Woods all old and shriveled as he reminisces about the good old days of the Angolian War. The mission goes back to 1986 in Angola, where we help the infamous Angolian booty clapper Jonas Savimbi. So as we delve further into this masochism, we take out the mortar crews with some mortars, and Big Boy Hudson comes in and claps the rest of the MPLA's forces, and we become victorious. Father Savimbi tells us exactly where Woods is on the Kabango River on a ship. Me and Hudson haul ass and do God's work in saving Woods. We make it towards the Kabango River, and we are one step closer to getting Big Boy Woods back on his feet. And as we watch a rocket have a bigger curve than a BBL, our helicopter gets hit and we get taken down. And as we go through this boat section, we did take damage a few times, 8 to be exact, until we found a hiding spot and we absolutely crushed through it. We open the container and we find Woods looking like a skeleton from Minecraft. And as we go out the container, we come across a helicopter. This helicopter hit me harder than a job application form, and after restarting quite a few times, we finally got through this section without taking no damage. And as the boat gets absolutely destroyed and Woods sinks like a sack of potatoes, we finally get the hell out of there and we try and find help. The rest of this godforsaken mission is just a stealth sequence, and after trying to find help and Clarton Menendez right in the corner, we alerted the whole village and it was time to bail. This section is an absolute beauty when it comes to cakewalks. We only took damage a few times, but mostly we could just run to each and every single one of the checkpoints, and as we got towards the end of the village, we thought it was over till Jonas Savimbi comes back and saves the day. And as Hudson tries to look good for the chuzz, he gets shot. That is indeed the end of the mission. We go back to present tense where Section and the boys are overlooking a hideout, and as we use advanced technology to swing our way through the mountains and almost die in the process, we wingsuit our way to the base, and this is where the mission begins. This very high-powered scope allows me to see through walls. This made this mission and the rest of the other missions in the game such an absolute cakewalk. We did have to restart a few times, but honestly, this section of the mission was an absolute beauty. And after making our way through the facility and absolutely clapping their cheeks so hard, we finally found a guy called Eric, who was working for Menendez as a slave to create a Solarian worm. Now, as he spoke to us about it like a university lecturer, he got absolutely sniped, taking out all of his cartilage with it, and after clapping back twice as hard, we made our way through the base, and Admiral Briggs decided to show up on site. The next mission is Old Wounds. We go back to 1986 in Afghanistan, where we play as Mason, and Woods is back on the prowl. Mason gets on a horseback, and it feels we're back in a 1960s spaghetti western action movie. We meet up with the Mujahideen, where Hudson is casually chatting with the geezer, in which he speaks to us about the Red Army nationalists coming to attack the Mujahideen. And as the Russians push forward, we move on horseback to get the Russians out of the area. Oh my god! And after absolutely crushing through that and destroying the BTRs, we finally got back on horseback, where we had to destroy a few helicopters, which I definitely didn't have any problem with. Wait, it's gonna come here. Yeah! No! No! Shit. Oh my god! What? No, that's bullshit. And after crying my way through that wonderful experience, this section, all I did was provide Overwatch for the people as they pushed through, and I sniped everybody in sight, and we made it through this area. And as we go back to regroup, we see this massive tank approaching the base. We charge the tank like a bunch of Western stallions, and we get absolutely sniped. And as we almost got ran over, Woods picked us up again, and as Mason tries to take out the tank, he sees Kravchenko. And after absolutely slapping him about, Woods clarts him right in the skull. We take him back to the base for questioning. There's a tiny little resistance section here. Maybe I can tap X to stop going on the hub as much. And after Woods puts a bullet right through his cornea, we get betrayed by the Mujahideen. And after getting absolutely beat up, we're left in the desert to die. There's a very quick tutorial defense mission where you have to defend from the SDC attacks. And if you guys have played these missions already, they're practically impossible to not take no damage. And plus, since we're not playing a section, this wouldn't even count anyway. To give you guys a bit of a taste of how really annoying this mission is, let's roll a tape. Oh my god! Oh my god. What the fuck? I'm literally... I literally destroyed it. Oh my god, there's fucking loads of them everywhere. Oh my, there's nothing I can do. How many of these fucking machines have they got? We've got no drones. We've only got humans. They've got a fucking tank coming. That's the most stressful fucking thing. Even Black Ops 1 was not this fucking stupid. And after raging my way through that entire section, we're still back in the old days with Hudson and Woods as we prepare to infiltrate Menendez's compound. We tried to take him nice and quietly, but as good old Pineapple Face himself decides to betray us and set Menendez free, Menendez goes absolutely apeshit, beats Noriega to almost half death. And this is where the mission begins. This part of the mission is absolutely impossible to not take no damage. Menendez goes on an absolute rampage, and every single time you try and move, he gets immediately shot. So before you guys start crying about canonical damage, please do me a favor and play a game yourself and realize that sometimes it's impossible to avoid. As we rush our way back to the compound with rage and cutting people's heads off, this section is one of the most therapeutically amazing parts to absolutely go ape shit in a COD game. And as we get back to the compound, we see from Menendez's standpoint what it's like to get fragged more worse than Prime Siege, and we return back to Mason's standpoint, where the mission truly begins. Now, I won't sugarcoat this, it took quite a little bit of time to get through this village, as we kept on taking shots from all angles, quite like Bonnie Blue. But after finally making it past this segment after tens of tries, Woods almost lost his shit trying to take out Menendez. Hudson told him to lock in for the Huz. And Woods decided to do one of the most generational lock-ins of all time. We made it up to the bell tower and just sniped our way through this section until me and Woods decided to go underground to flank Menendez to see if we can try and find some intel on what Menendez was up to. This underground section had more coke than a trap house, and after restarting a few times and collecting a CIA note, we followed Woods upstairs and he was losing his absolute shit. Now we see from Mason's standpoint what happened with the grenade, as Menendez somehow survived. We go back to present tense in Pakistan to try and find out what's going on with Menendez. This mission is my all-time favorite in the campaign. Just like the rest of the other missions, it was an absolute cakewalk. We were taking out booty more faster than a Diddy party, but as we moved up further, we almost got squished by a bus, but luckily we laid pipe enough to push the gates out the way. As Harper was looking around to see how much of a shithole this really was, we had to keep moving. And as we get through the stealth section with ease and go inside the sewers, we report back to Admiral Briggs, where we come to the main area. Throughout this mission, you have to record 3 vital pieces of information, but after that, throughout the next gunfight section, you have access to claws, and after absolutely shredding through all their inventory, the boys showed up with the whips, and we got the hell out of there. So throughout this section, I decided to use the drone so that any damage that was concord throughout this sequence was done to a vehicle and not necessarily section. We drove through this final section like an absolute badass, and we met up with Tian Zhao. It was with section's father in Afghanistan, which is where we move into the Cayman Islands, where we go for a nice little quick holiday with the boys, in which we see the absolute goat Harper trying to rizz up the Huz.
How you doing, beautiful?
Excuse you, creep.
And after going to the floor we needed to go to, we got towards the computer when we found out Karma is actually a woman and not a weapon. So we told Harper who she is, and I made my way down to the nightclub, where after confronting Karma, and instead of following us, she decides to sacrifice herself to DeFalco. After a very badass action movie style shootout, it was time to track down DeFalco and save Karma. Making our way through the mall is actually more easy than you might imagine, and as we were getting closer to fighting DeFalco, there actually is an easier way of actually killing him by just sniping him from long distance, which allows you to skip through all the other unnecessary fighting parts. So this mission is an absolute godsend. We move on to the infamous mission Suffer With Me. We're playing as Woods, where we meet up with McKnight to give him the rundown to capture Noriega. Now just before we get to Noriega, we have to go through a hangar, and honestly this bit is another one of these smooth sections, and as long as you stay behind cover, this mission's absolute cheeks. And after going to Noriega's hotel room and sealing his reputation, it was time to escort him to the army checkpoint. I won't lie, walking through the streets of Cuba once more brought me back to Operation 40, but it did take us a few retries before we actually made it through. Now before we make it into the army checkpoint, we go through a medical center in which Woods tries to save a civilian. He gets attacked and red screened out of nowhere, so we're not going to deem as damage. And after shooting him in the head and his eyes looking like he's had the best time in the world, once Woods gets up, there's an enemy literally right at the end of the hallway who shoots you and instantly makes you take damage. I'm not too sure if there's a way of avoiding this guy, so we're going to deem this as canonical damage for now, in which having to save Noriega once again because he decided to run away, and Woods doing a 3-piece combo on him. We get attacked by a friendly strafing run where we have to run and jump across the other side of the building, and after experiencing that adrenaline rush, we meet back up with the US Army, where we finally make the exchange. And as you guys know already, we're not going to kill Mason. We shoot him in the leg, and Menendez comes out of nowhere. Menendez, for some reason, has an obsession with kneecapping people. We witness Hudson getting sloshed, and that is the end of the mission. We move back onto present day with Achilles Veil, where we play as Fareed, who's working with the Americans to give as much information on Menendez as possible. And as Menendez gathers his Gooner army around, the Americans put a quick stop to this parade, where Menendez tells us to regroup back at the Citadel. In this mission, if you have the access kit pick, you do get the camouflage, which makes this mission a million times easier. We didn't have to restart a single time trying to get through this section of the mission, and as we met back up with Menendez, I unfortunately chose to kill Harper, and after saying goodbye to poor Harper, we had to keep moving. Luckily, you do get the camouflage kit once again, and we absolutely flew through this second half of the mission with style. Section manages to luckily get to Menendez before he tries to leave, in which Menendez is finally in our custody, which brings us on to Odysseus. We're on the USS Barack Obama ship interrogating Menendez, and as per all cliches go, Menendez decides to attack the the USS Obama and manages to get out the cuffs and hold Salazar hostage. And as Section gives himself up, we get knocked out, and later we wake up and we realize the Mercs have completely raided the ship. Now, the majority of this mission actually wasn't too difficult to do. When we got further along the ship, we did have to restart a few times, but honestly, nothing to be really concerned about. But the section before we make it into the server room was an absolute nightmare. This area, I died over 10 times. For some reason, this bit was just an absolute nightmare to get through. This felt more torturous than a dominatrix. And after truly suffering with that section, we see that Menendez is about to take over the server room, in which after taking Admiral Briggs hostage, we see that Salazar betrayed us all. I chose not to hit Admiral Briggs, and after Menendez was uploading a virus into the system, and Karma wakes back up and tries to do whatever she can to salvage the system. Now it's time to get the hell off this ship, and after confronting Salazar, we make it up to the top of the ship. I won't lie to you people, this section did take me quite a few retries. All they do is spawn in behind you and constantly infinitely spawn in too, and there's no way of stopping them. But after a good 6 or 7 attempts, we managed to finally push through and get the hell out of there. We move on to Cordes DA. The aircraft that was harboring the president gets shot down, so we need an emergency evac crew to come and collect us all. And after typical cliches go, when we get blown up once again, there's a little section where you run up and you jump on top of the truck, and for some reason the game has to force damage upon you here, and as we shoot all those drones, we get the hell off that truck, and it was time to protect the president. In this section, you can choose to be a sniper, or you can choose to rappel down to protect the president. Since I have the wonderful Storm PSR, if you don't know this weapon already, this can shoot through walls. That's all that needs to be said. This is an absolute godsend towards the last couple missions, so as I sat there and provided overwatch for the president, we rappelled down and I penetrated all these Mercs' cheeks later. After that, we get a tiny little driving section until eventually getting blown up again. As you guys know, the Storm PSR is one of the most OP weapons in the game. We're back on foot where we have to regroup with the president. This section, just like every other section coming up, was absolutely easy. After getting through this area, Section for some reason takes damage and then gets knocked out. After regaining consciousness, the game so conveniently parks a jet, in which Section gets into it, and this section is just an area where you have to protect the president, so it's pretty self-explanatory. And after going through a nice little cool jet segment, Section has to jump out of it, somehow loses his parachute half the way down and still survives, in which that leads us to the end of the mission, which leads us on to the final mission, Judgment Day. The mission starts by gliding our way down to Epstein Island, where the mission begins. Just like the last mission, the Storm PSR is an absolute godsend. We're able to shoot everything through walls, so honestly, getting into the manufacturing warehouse was absolutely easy. As long as you take your time, you can shoot every enemy through walls, and honestly get through this mission easier than you possibly might imagine. And after listening to a Menendez broadcast, everything goes down south and now begins to blow up, and it's time to find Menendez. Now, I won't lie, this section did take me a few attempts, but honestly, not that many compared to all the other sections. But since we're nearing victory, this game had to give me the final last bit of torture before letting me beat the game without taking no damage. We finally make it to the end. All that's left is a few enemies, and we've beat the game without taking no damage. As we take out the last enemies... Bro, the game just crashed. I choose to save Menendez to get the good ending, and that, my friends, is the end of the game. So what do we learn about Black Ops 2? Thankfully, the devs didn't make this game as hard as Black Ops 1. This game gave me more joy and nostalgia than it did actually anger in the damage run. I hope you gooners enjoyed this video. We'll be back soon. I'll see you all in the next one.